Hello everyone, welcome back to Cycling World. Professional cycling has just been shaken by one of those decisions that sends shockwaves far beyond a single rider or a single team. A move that nobody saw coming, made quietly and without warning, has completely disrupted the balance of the peloton and forced the cycling world to ask uncomfortable questions. The name at the centre of this storm is Simon Yates, the reigning winner of the Giro d'Italia, a rider still at the peak of his powers and one of the most important figures within Team Visma Lease, a bike. His sudden retirement, announced while he was training in Spain with his team and preparing for the upcoming season, has stunned fans, riders and teams alike. This is not the story of an ageing cyclist fading quietly into retirement. This is the story of a Grand Tour champion who, only months ago, stood victorious in Rome after 3 brutal weeks of racing. A rider who proved his authority in the mountains, who outperformed some of the strongest climbers in the peloton, and who played a decisive role in shaping last season's hierarchy. Yates was not on the margins of the project. He was central to it. His experience, climbing ability, and leadership made him a cornerstone of Visma's plans moving forward. Losing a rider of this profile is not just losing talent, it is losing structure, planning, and security. In modern cycling, teams build seasons months in advance, sometimes years. Every role is defined, every rider selected for a purpose. That is why the timing of this decision has amplified its impact. Simon Yates was not injured, sidelined, or detached from the team environment. He was fully integrated, training at full intensity, and expected to play a major role in the biggest races of the year. His departure leaves an immediate and difficult-to-fill void. The Giro d'Italia is not won by chance. It is won by riders who are mentally and physically prepared to endure the hardest conditions the sport can offer. For a reigning champion to step away under these circumstances is rare, and it inevitably raises questions that go far beyond simple retirement. This decision does not affect only one team, it affects the entire ecosystem of professional cycling. And this story, far from being over, has only just begun. As soon as the news of Simon Yates' sudden retirement became public, the cycling world moved into familiar and dangerous territory. Speculation, rumours, theories built without facts. Whenever a decision breaks the expected script, the vacuum of information is quickly filled by voices eager to explain the unexplainable, often without evidence or responsibility. Multiple hypotheses have circulated in recent days. Internal conflicts, hidden disagreements, unspoken tensions within Team Visma. Lease a bike. Some narratives have gone even further, drifting towards serious accusations that cross a clear line. From Cycling World's perspective, it is important to draw a firm boundary. We do not buy into narratives designed to damage cycling without proof. This sport has paid too high a price in the past for speculation disguised as truth. Retirement in elite cycling is rarely a simple decision. It can be physical, mental, or deeply personal. The pressure at the top level is relentless. Years of pain, sacrifice, expectations, and scrutiny accumulate quietly until one moment tips the balance. Winning the Giro d'Italia does not erase that burden. In some cases, it magnifies it. Many have argued that the decision makes no sense because Yates was training well, fully committed, and preparing intensely for the season ahead. But cycling does not always offer visible warning signs. Motivation can disappear, even when form remains. The body may respond while the mind no longer follows. Reducing such a moment to conspiracy or conflict is not analysis, it is simplification. There is a difference between questioning a decision and attacking a person. Unfortunately, some voices have chosen the latter. Turning uncertainty into accusation may generate clicks, but it damages the credibility of the sport and ignores the human reality behind elite performance. At Cycling World, we believe in context, not chaos, in analysis, not accusation. The absence of immediate explanations does not justify filling the gap with suspicion. Cycling deserves better than that. Yates' retirement is shocking. It is uncomfortable. It leaves consequences. But it does not automatically imply scandal. Understanding that distinction matters, not just for this case, but for how the sport protects itself moving forward. The real impact of this decision will not be measured in rumours. It will be measured in how teams adapt, how leaders respond, and how the peloton reshapes itself in the months to come. Amid the speculation and the noise, one voice has cut through with clarity and authority. The voice of Bjarne Riis, a former Tour de France winner and one of the most respected figures in Danish cycling. Riis does not speak from rumour or emotion. He speaks from experience, and his reaction to Simon Yates' decision has been blunt. Riis does not question Yates' talent or his career. On the contrary, that is precisely why his criticism is so severe. For him, the sudden retirement of the reigning Giro d'Italia champion while actively training with Team Visma, Yates' Lease bike, is deeply problematic, not because a rider has no right to stop, but because of how and when the decision was made. According to Riis, this is not something that appears planned. If it had been, he argues, the responsible path would have been to inform the team earlier, to allow Visma time to adjust, to search for alternatives, to rebuild part of its structure. Instead, the team was left exposed with no real capacity to respond. Riis uses a word that has resonated across the cycling world: disrespect. Not necessarily toward the team alone, but toward the peloton itself. In his view, there are riders who fight year after year without ever winning a Grand Tour, who sacrifice everything for a chance that may never come. Watching a reigning Giro winner step away so abruptly can feel like a provocation to those still chasing that dream. His criticism is not emotional, it is structural. Yates was not a secondary rider, he was a cornerstone, a proven Grand Tour winner and a vital mountain lieutenant. Losing him is not simply losing form or depth, it is losing balance. Riis does not accuse, he does not speculate, he points to consequences. Professional cycling operates on trust, planning and commitment. When one of those pillars suddenly collapses, the shock travels far beyond a single team. These comments have reignited an uncomfortable debate. What does it mean to be a champion? And what responsibilities come with that status? Riis believes those questions cannot be ignored, and by asking them publicly, he has forced the entire peloton to reflect. Beyond the broader debate, the sudden retirement of Simon Yates has a very clear and immediate consequence. Jonas Vingegaard is the rider most directly affected by this decision, because when Visma built its ambitions for the coming seasons, Yates was not just part of the roster, he was part of the foundation. Winning the Tour de France in the modern era requires more than an exceptional leader. It requires a mountain support system capable of controlling the race on the hardest days, neutralising rivals and absorbing pressure when attacks come in waves. Yates was one of those rare riders who could offer that level of support while also carrying his own leadership pedigree. Vingegaard's Tour victories were built on collective strength, on teammates who could set tempo deep into climbs, reduce the group of favourites, and allow their leader to respond only when it truly mattered. Yates fit that profile perfectly. A Grand Tour winner, a proven climber, a rider capable of surviving extreme intensity without fading. But the impact extends beyond the Tour. Visma had also mapped out an ambitious approach to the Giro d'Italia. For Vingegaard, targeting multiple Grand Tours demands even greater depth in the mountains. Losing a rider of Yates' calibre in this context is not just a setback, it is a strategic blow. Replacing such a profile is nearly impossible at this stage. The transfer market offers no immediate solutions. Young talent cannot replicate experience overnight, and improvisation at this level often comes at a cost. As a result, Visma enters the season more exposed than planned. This does not mean Vingegaard is suddenly vulnerable, but it does mean he is less protected, less insulated against long-range attacks, less equipped to control every scenario, and against rivals like Tadej Pogacar, those margins matter. In Grand Tours, victories are often decided not by strength alone, but by the quality of support when strength begins to fade. Yates' absence shifts that balance. And for Vingegaard, the loss is not symbolic, it is deeply practical. The season ahead will reveal how Visma adapts. But one thing is already clear. This retirement has changed the equation for one of cycling's most dominant leaders. As the immediate shock fades, the retirement of Simon Yates leaves behind a deeper and more uncomfortable conversation. What level of responsibility does a reigning Grand Tour champion carry toward his team and the wider peloton? This is not a question of contracts or regulations, but of unwritten codes that have long governed professional cycling. The sport has always existed between individual ambition and collective effort. Victories may carry one name, but they are built by entire teams. When a rider reaches the status of a Grand Tour winner, his decisions inevitably resonate far beyond his own career. That is why this moment has generated such intense debate. Not because stopping is forbidden, but because the timing and context amplify the consequences. The reaction from figures like Bjarne Riis reflects a broader concern about accountability. His comments are less about condemnation and more about the impact on a structure that depends on trust and long-term planning. Team Visma. Lease bike did not simply lose a rider. It lost a cornerstone of its mountain support. For Jonas Vingegaard, the consequences are immediate. Support at the highest level cannot be improvised. Experience cannot be replaced overnight. In Grand Tours, these margins often decide everything. This story is not about assigning blame. It is about recognizing how individual limits collide with collective ambition in modern cycling. The calendar is heavier, the pressure relentless, and riders are human. But teams and teammates are part of that reality too. Yates' retirement will be remembered not only for its surprise, but for the questions it has forced the sport to confront about respect, responsibility, and what it truly means to walk away at the top.